Alrighty, welcome back. We are cruising at a very respectful 192 knots ground speed at 14,500 feet, and we are 52.6 miles from Courchevel. And I did make a mistake earlier. The airport that I pointed out was not the one that we wanted to start our descent from. It is this airport, and I believe that's Lima India Mike Whiskey, and so that's about where we want to start our descent down to a pattern altitude of 7,500 feet. So just a few minutes, we'll be there, and we'll go ahead and plan on doing that. Meanwhile, just a couple of points of information about Courchevel. It is the French call it the Altiport, not airport, but Altiport, as it is extremely high, one of the highest in all of Europe. The runway elevation, I believe, is around 6,500 feet, and it's a short runway, only 1,722 feet long, and it's built on pretty much the side of a mountain at a very wicked slope of 18.5%. So when we land there, we're pretty much going to be landing on the side of a hill going uphill, and that's going to pose some interesting problems for the arrival that I hope we can deal with. And due to the way the airport's situated, there is no instrument approach. You have to take off of runway 04, and you must land on runway 22. And there is no go around. You've got one shot, and if you miss, it's a bad day, and you'll see why when we get there. Courchevel has been ranked the 7th most dangerous airport by the History Channel in its Extreme Airport show, Most Extreme Airports. And a fun fact about Courchevel, it appeared in the airport appeared in the James Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies, and that was filmed around 1996 and previewed around 1997. In order to fly into and land at Courchevel, a pilot must receive special training, and he must obtain an endorsement prior to flying into Courchevel. I do want to give credit for the Courchevel scenery to LLH Creations. You can find them at www.llhinfo.com. They did a really nice job with the airport. So I see that we're approaching our landmark for our descent. We're 40 miles out. So I'm going to go ahead and start easing our power back a little bit here, slowing us up some, preparing for the descent. And I'm going to go ahead and select an altitude of 12,500 feet. We'll begin our initial descent, and I'm going to keep it a slow descent, about 500 feet a minute. And we'll just kind of monitor that. We still have some peaks we need to get across, and this is where our second map with the terrain awareness warning system will come in handy. I'm going to increase the range on this, 25 miles, 50 miles. There's our airport. So any peaks that we have in front of us are going to start showing up as we descend down, and this will help us to steer clear of them and yet still descend and be prepared for approach into Courchevel. And so as we begin our descent, I'm going to go ahead and open our cowl flaps. Actually, no, I'm going to keep those closed. Sorry, my mistake. They stay closed until we land. Our altimeter, I'll go ahead and check that. 3011 is what I'm reading. Our mixture, I'm going to leave that leaned out since we're going to be at such a high altitude airport when we land. And as far as our de-icing, we'll leave our pitot stall heat on. And let's just take a look over here at our fuel gauge. Everything looks good there. And our nav source is set on the GPS. We've got this crazy bug to deal with. And we could go ahead and tune the Courchevel radio into our comm. Have not been able to raise anybody on that. I don't know if the frequency is not good or there's just nobody on the frequency, but it's 120.075. So we'll go ahead and put that in our COM 1. Our audio panel selected COM 1. And I'm starting to see some of these peaks. These two right here, they're showing up. But we're going to pass by those without any problem. And I think we're going to descend right down through here, right down through there. Sort of where I'm aiming. We'll see how it goes. We're passing through 13,000 now. And we are still in the heading mode of our autopilot, so we can maneuver with our heading bug. Even though it's gone awry, we can still use it to turn the airplane. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn slightly to the right there. Just kind of aim for this little opening here. Starting to see some more obstacles come into view, so I'm going to go ahead and turn us to the right some more. Kind of head over this way where I don't see as many targets there. I don't want to get us too far off course, but I want to stay out of these high peaks. So now our course line's coming through here. Our course line's not, but our track is coming straight up through, catching a little turbulence off of these mountains. So we're coming down to 12.5. I'm going to ease our power back just a little bit. Let's just check our distance. We're still 27 miles out. We got pretty good ways to go. I don't think I want to go any lower just yet. Make sure I get past the highest of these peaks. Here looks like a good place to get past this ridge line here. So we're just going to use our map display to help us circumnavigate some of these higher peaks while we're at the same time lowering our altitude in preparation for a landing. And I want to go ahead and pull us on down to another at least 1,000 feet. Let's say we'll go ahead and try 11,000. There's 11.5. Let's just put that in. I do see a little bit of red right there. A little worrisome. May have to swing a little bit further to the north there. I think we'll just go ahead and plan on that. Just make sure we stay off of those. Looks like right along in there should be about right. Let's just check it visually. Oh yeah. This is a handy little tool for mountain flying. Okay, we've regenerated our map here, so let's just see, yep, we're threading the needle. Showing about a 19 knot wind coming out of the northeast. I'll make sure it doesn't blow me over onto this mountaintop. And we'll go ahead and drop us on down a little further. We'll come on down 10.5. Seems like we may be past the tallest peaks. So we've got a little bit of clear sailing here right now. We'll just hold this course as we continue to descend. We're 18 miles out. I don't see any clouds right now, fortunately. So we're going to be landing on runway 22, and what we're going to do is turn and enter a base leg, a right base leg for 22, which that's going to be a heading of about 140. Is that right? 22 minus 90 is, why is that math so hard when you're flying an airplane? 130. So I'm going to go ahead and pull our altitude on down. 8,000. Really have trouble seeing this little print from that far back in my seat. I'll use our power on back. Start slowing us up and bring it on back to about 20 inches manifold pressure. And it looks like we're going to need to turn to the left here. So we got to come around this mountain right here. We can't just turn direct in there right now because there's some obstacles in the way. So we're just going to fly down this valley. And once we get past this point right here, then we're just going to basically fly around that, continuing our descent. Keeping an eye out of the window, making sure that what we see agrees with our map. Descending now through at 9,300 feet. So because this runway slopes upward, when we cross the threshold, we're going to need to flare more than normal because we're going to need to really actually almost climb so that we don't slam into the runway. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to carry just a little bit more airspeed, so it's going to be a little dicey trying to carry some extra airspeed and get the airplane stopped in 1,700 feet, down and stopped, wheels on the ground, brakes on. But it is uphill, and it's extreme uphill, so that gravity should help us a little bit with any luck. And I'm going to go ahead and dial up our pattern altitude of 7,500 feet. Let's close in our range here. Okay, so this thing is off 90 degrees or thereabouts, so it's really messing with my mind and trying to calculate things like base leg headings. .220 minus the 90 degrees is 130. I did get that right, but this heading bug is not going to be there when I'm on base. It's going to be another 90 degrees from there, so about 040. Now we're coming around the mountain. We're at our pattern altitude, and we have reached our gear extension speed. 123 knots. And now airspeed's in the flap extension. I'm going to go ahead and put a notch of flaps on, and I'm going to add some power back in to keep us from getting too slow. So we've leveled out. And I want to hug this mountain line right here. Come in with a little bit more power. If I can feel my way heading wise through here without really knowing what the heading bug is doing, I'm just sort of doing it incrementally so that I don't overshoot it and hit a mountain. So I could call this flight, I could scrub the flight, redo it, but sometimes things break in the real world too. So I think it's a good idea sometimes to fly without some of your equipment. Honestly, you almost need some lights on in this. There we go. Alright, let's bring these props up to full RPMs. Our mixture, will keep it where it is. Fairly rich. I mean lean, not rich. So I think we're going to want to turn when we get to about this point right here. It's about where we want to turn in here. It's a runway 22. It's going to be there. We're going to be flying almost downwind to it. It's not exactly a square pattern. We don't really have the luxury here in the mountains of flying a nice, neat little pattern. Well, when I get to about that ridgeline right there, I need to turn, but I need to turn before I get to this mountain here. So we're going to be doing about 100 knots. And then we're going to slow up to about 90 on the approach. And that's close to what I'd like to be doing when we cross the threshold, but I'd like to be down pretty low to the threshold so I don't have to lose a whole lot of altitude. And I can just flare and climb with the runway. It's going to be a little tricky. I will say I have tried it several times. I have been successful some of those times, and I may have some blooper footage after this video of some of my failures. So now I'm going to try to get us turned around to pretty much to runway heading and see if we can find the airport. And I've got it in sight. So let's get this yaw damper off. Give me some rudder control. Got a little bit of crosswind. Light wind. At least we can see the airport. I'll get us slowed up here a little bit more. Let's go ahead and go with full flaps. There's 90 knots. Add some power in. And we'll start easing that nose up. Power's off. And brakes. Are we gonna stop? Yes, we are stopped. Barely. But we did stop. Okay, we're not going to win any awards for that landing, but I do think that we can walk away. Probably did a little damage to the landing gear. Locals are probably laughing, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Courchevel, France in the Swiss Alps. Not really sure where to park, but I think for right now we're just going to park right over here. And I'm going to call that a fair landing. Let's set this parking brake so we don't roll off the hill because it is steep. So I think we're going to fly out of here and fly back to Maiden. I didn't get that brake set. We're still going to roll off the hill. There we are. So let's cut off these lights up here. Landing lights off. Oh, they were off. Taxi light, okay, we may have forgot those. Oh, faux pas. And we'll go ahead and cut off this fuel pump. And let's cut off our radio master. And we should cut these lights off. Not a big deal, but we'll just go ahead and flip them off. Kind of hard to get to the switch there. And let's go ahead and pull this power back. And we'll open up the door. Defense Expresse de Fumer. Looks like a place to get a cup of coffee. Espresso. So we left our flaps down. We need to raise those up. There we go. We don't want to step on those while they're down. Okay. Well, that concludes this part, and we will come back and take the flight home. It's going to be fun taking off this runway that seems to just go off the edge of a cliff, but it's a very steep slope. And there's our ski lift. I've got some footage of actually this airport. You're not supposed to do a missed approach. I did one, and I'll show you my blooper footage how that came out. But I got a nice up close and personal look at that tower up there at the top of the ski slope. Okay, well, that's all for now. Thanks for watching from FS Mania. Have a good one.